Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone, and now I've got my microphone all up. I think we're good for once. I think we're good. I think I've actually started a show organized. Thank you guys for joining me so late, but I did want to do a history show tonight, and I've just been super busy. Doing things I love, helping affiliates, giving some parliamentary advice, but it can get very busy. But we are, even though it's late in the month, on the 20th, what's it, 21st? Though, I guess in the month is the wrong thing. Hello there, Fidalgo Files. We're starting a new LP News. So what we have is the January-February 1974 issue of LP News. Normally I start these at the beginning of the month. And hello, Daniel 3, Biblical Anarchy. Go subscribe to his channel if you have not done so. Oh, let me see if I can fix the volume. 1 second. This should be a little better. Let me know if this volume seems a little better. Thank you for letting me know it's low. I might have turned the mic a weird way. It's one of those really weird directional mics. So let me know if it still seems low. It looks like it's peaking nicely on my thing now. So we are back on January 1974. And hello, Paul. Before we get started with that, just a little housekeeping as usual. I've gotten a few new subscribers for Patreon over the past few days, so thank you very much. Trying to get back to what I had at the end of 2021. January is always tough for YouTubers. If you can afford it and you enjoy this type of show, it does require quite a bit of research at times. I would truly appreciate you becoming a patron at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. Also coming up this weekend, tomorrow, if he remembers, there was a Twitch user who wanted to talk about homesteading. So we're going to talk about that. It's going to be a very loose conversation. I don't pretend to be any kind of expert on that kind of topic whatsoever. And also on Sunday, there are two National Party things we will be live streaming. One will be part 2 of the Delaware appeal. And I never did read what I wrote. I think I'll wait till tomorrow and read both what I'm submitting and what some members of the Libertarian Party of Colorado are submitting, some board members, not the entire board. We didn't have time for an email ballot. And also the Massachusetts discussion. So Sunday should be an exciting day, and I have some kind of protest going on as well down at the Capitol. I'm sure it's something to do with the COVID regime, but I don't have all the details on it because I'm not so sure if I'm going to be able to make it with all of these other things I have to do. And what do you think about like this cool little glitter lamp I got over at Goodwill, huh? Okay, without further ado, I always say without further ado, and then I do some ado. So all super chats matter. Super chats go to support my campaign. Today or yesterday, it was late last night, so it probably was technically today. I booked some more plane flights. We pretty much have spent everything down to, I definitely will not drink it, Paul says. We've spent pretty much down to what I have in my campaign GoFundMe. So I really do need to raise funds to buy the tickets for the rest of the conventions and to send DL Cummings to conventions. Remember, everything from Super Chats goes to the campaign. Can you believe that? My phone is ringing. And because I'm just going to talk through this, because I film with my phone, it's interrupted my stream. I didn't put it on Do Not Disturb, but I have who's calling me this late? Let's just let it go. La-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, and hopefully I think I've, thank you, Daniel 3. Let me see if I can change. Here we go. Isn't that weird? I wonder who's calling me. So thank you so much, Daniel 3 Biblical Anarchy, which I like saying the name of your show because I want people to go and subscribe, for the super chat. It's super, super appreciated. Again, it all does go to a good cause, and all of my donors can get an accounting spreadsheet because I do my campaign finances with transparency. So let's get started, shall we? Beginning the new year of 1974. I bet you that was Angela. Wasn't that? Yeah, the Statue of Liberty. Let me put up what Cam Anarchy said, because I want to explain what that was. He said, the Statue of Liberty blotted out in the dark shadows and interesting aesthetic and symbolism. If you're wondering why it showed up that way, the wallpaper on my phone is the Statue of Liberty. So it was bringing up my phone wallpaper, but it's not blotted out. It's like a full color Statue of Liberty. Why it blotted out like that was really, really creepy in a way, wasn't it? But that's why you got the Statue of Liberty when my phone rang. I was supposed to speak with Angela earlier. I know she had a lot of appointments, so I just texted her right before the show. Well, I guess you got tied up. We can talk tomorrow. So I bet you that was her calling me. So Angela, if you're checking Facebook, you're seeing my live stream. Hi, sorry. If you still want to talk, I'm going to be up late. I know you're an hour behind. We can talk after the show. But let's get on to 1974. What I like to do when we start a brand new year is I like to talk a little bit about what was going on during that year. And I'm pulling up some of my notes if I can here. And because I've got terrible vision, I'm going to try to bring it over here to this other screen. Okay, so what was going on in 1974, just in general? Obviously, these issues will go into some specifics. But for those of you who are old enough to remember, who are of my vintage or older, there was a tremendous oil crisis that was going on in 1974. I told you guys the story before of with the little capitalist I was going car to car selling sodas and Kool-Aid. For the long lines that used to be at the gas stations. And sometimes you could only go on certain days, depending upon your license tag of your car. In Britain, also, from what I had read in my research, the economic crisis and the energy crisis was so bad, they went down to a 3-day work week because that was all the power that they had that they could keep businesses open. You know, we think things are bad today, and they are bad today, don't get me wrong. But isn't that something where businesses could only be open 3 days a week? But here's what was the most interesting thing, at least to me. In February 1974 is when Patty Hearst was kidnapped by the Sudanese Liberation Army and then participated in the bank robbery, and the whole issue of Stockholm Syndrome came up. So I bet you that gets mentioned in a future episode of LP News, but if it doesn't, we might do a special episode on that because I find that so interesting, and it does have a lot to do with what was going on at this time. Okay, Vietnam was obviously over. Ford, after Nixon's resignation, did grant amnesty to draft dodgers. What was also super in the forefront were all the social changes that came out of the 60s, like the women's liberation movement was huge in the early 70s. Happy Days premiered for the first time in 1974, as did Good Times, two shows that I both love. And I did not know, maybe you knew, Good Times was a spinoff of Maude. I don't know however many of you remember Maude, but I did not know Good Times was a spinoff from Maude, and I cannot, for the life of me, picture where the spinoff was. Was the mother, Florida Evans, was she in Maude? I can't remember, and a lot of people don't know. Penny, in Good Times, the daughter who was adopted by Malona, the next-door neighbor. I know way more about Good Times than I probably should. Remember when she uncovered her shirt and she had that iron, the mark of the iron on her back? Oh my God, I was such a little kid. I was traumatized by seeing that, thinking of somebody putting a hot iron on a child's back. But that was Janet Jackson. A lot of people don't know that Penny was, the little girl Penny was Janet Jackson in Good Times. Let's see what else here. Oh, Stephen King's first novel, Carrie, was also published in 1974. He wrote other ones, but that was the first one that got published. It was first announced that Freon was killing the atmosphere, you know, the protective layer. I forgot now what it was called, but I remember when Freon started to be banned. Also, it was the year of the Amityville Horror murders, the actual murders that inspired the novel and all of that franchise. Let's see what else here. Oh, Marshall Fields drove his car into the White House and said he was going to blow it up. It turned out all he had was flares. The Exorcist came out. Also, Murder on the Orient Express came out that year. Blazing Saddles came out that year. Oh, Golan Heights and the ceasefire agreement was reached that year. The song Seasons in the Sun, which I loved for some reason. It is sappy as all hell, but Seasons in the Sun is one of my favorite songs of all time. That came out in 1974. Let's see what else. Oh, there was a ton of busing protests for integration of the schools. Streaking was a big thing, and this dude streaked across the stage at the Academy Awards. And the last thing that happened in 74 that I thought was interesting enough just to highlight was Rumble in the Jungle, which was Foreman and Muhammad Ali. Also happened in 1974. And to me, bringing out just those little vignettes, those little events, kind of gives you the mood, the atmosphere of the time that we're going to be talking about. And good night, Paul. I just see that you said you had to run. So with all of that as our backdrop, And yes, this is a pink rabbit fur beret. I've got some odd choices of clothing. I know. So with all of that as a backdrop, let's see how much we're going to get through of the LP news. We usually don't do the whole thing in one episode, but let me pull it up here. Here we go. And we're just going to go through, at least let's look at the headlines to see what is covered in this issue, and we'll decide what we're going to cover. Again, I don't read these ahead of time. I read them with you, so you get to see my contemporaneous reaction, which sometimes can be amusing. So your first headline is LP candidates are off and running. Nice. We can see up at the top, this is number 18, which is why this is episode 18. The LP headquarters are still in Aurora, Colorado. And this next page, Spotlight on State Parties, I fill in a bunch of stuff on LPedia from here. I get so much information from the Spotlight on State Parties that fills in a lot of history. There's a report of the LNC meeting. They called it the Executive Committee at that time. Anti-socialist parties gain ground in Danish election. And this here is very important. This political perspective we'll probably spend quite a bit of time on, because after and in the wake, well, it was right before, because this isn't after Nixon's resignation yet, but in the wake of Watergate, both before and after, there was a lot of federal campaign finance reform. And I think it's much more difficult to form a minor party now, and this really hobbled us. But we'll get into that. See the next page. There's a book review of How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World by Harry Brown, which I have never read, but we will go over that. We got Stop FCF. I'm not sure what that is, but I guess we'll find out. And always at the end is bits and pieces. But we are going to start with page 1, as we normally do. And this is, and that's continued on page 3. Let's see how long this goes, because probably all we're going to cover tonight is this first article, because I find these shows are better if they're a little bit shorter and we can talk about things a little bit more. And I do got a ton of crap to do. Hold on one second. I would like to, I'm not sponsored by Smirnoff, but I wish I was, but I'm going to take a sip right now. Alrighty, so I don't know why there's streaks across these pictures. The scan apparently didn't come out so good, and you can see there's a rust mark up there. I'm going to try to maybe get a better original copy of this. And hello, individual gang. I'm looking at my chat. For those, because I don't put the chat up on the screen, which on this program I'm using, it's difficult to do. On another program I'm doing, it's easy. Just so you guys know, I'm not like talking to myself. Well, I am talking to myself, but there's also allegedly people over on YouTube. All right, I better shut up now and just get off to here. LP candidates are off and running. So, and here's that word again that I find so fascinating. So it starts out, heartened by the success of the New York, and here's that weird word we don't use today, mayoralty campaign. We usually just say mayoral, or right? Mayoral. That's a word I have such a hard time with, campaign, or mayor campaign, or campaign for mayor. But back then they used mayoralty campaign. It sounds a little bit too, like, royal, I guess, for my taste. But that reminds me of the other word that I've become fascinated with, which was inquorate, which means not having a quorum. How fancy pants. Okay, so heartened by the success of the New York mayoralty campaign last year, and determined to spread the libertarian philosophy even more widely in 1974, LP members around the country are already starting to announce their candidacies for this November's election. And that mayor campaign was Fran Youngstein's mayor campaign that we went into a lot last year. Now here is Sanford Cohen. He is pretty prominent in early LP history. And now we get to see a picture of him here as well. And he often went by Sandy, I believe, Cohen. So it says Sanford Cohen says, individual K. I'm not reading that one out loud, but I get you. I getcha. So Sanford Cohen has been running for Congress in New York State's 25th district ever since last January. To date, he has raised and spent several $1,000s and has achieved a great deal of publicity, partly as a result of a nude campaign poster. I remember reading about this last time. I think it said something like a candidate with nothing to hide, and he had like a flyer in front of his junk. I tried to find a copy of that poster. Even in old Google Images, I searched newspapers.com. I couldn't find it anywhere. If anyone has a copy of that racy Sanford Cohen poster, I would love a copy of it. Elpedia would love a copy of it. I wish they published it. Why did they publish a copy of it in LP News? It isn't like David Nolan was a prude. I'm so surprised. But anyway, let's continue. Partly as a result of a nude campaign poster he issued last year, he has been written up in many newspapers, interviewed on radio and TV, and was covered by Playboy magazine. I wonder what Playboy, because I will use any excuse to buy a new issue of Playboy. I haven't seen him in the issues that I have that we've been going through, like that interview with Ayn Rand. Of course, that was in 1964. Well, it had to be probably late 73. Looks like I have an excuse to pick up a few more Playboys. Okay, here we go. One of Sandy's main campaign planks is his advocacy of a pay-what-you-want tax plan. He has also signed a contract binding him to keep his campaign promises and has challenged his opponents to do the same. He describes his campaign as going unbelievably well. Sandy is a member of the LP National Executive Committee. I did not know that. I don't think I knew that. Interesting. I'm going to have to look that up on Elpedia. His main opponent, GOP incumbent Hamilton Fish, has the dubious distinction of having the lowest Royce Report score of any Republican in Congress. The Royce Report, Royce was another member of the LNC at that time who would rank candidates. He would give them freedom scores. And apparently Fish got the lowest score of any Republican in Congress. Next, Kay Herroff, who we've talked about quite a bit as well, is the next candidate listed there. And it says Kay Haroff. She was, I think, the Ohio chair as well. It says that in the next sentence. I was going from memory, but it says, so Kay Haroff, our Ohio chairman, and I believe she ran for president at one time too, is running for U.S. Senate in the Buckeye State. As of the time we went to press, Ohio LP members had gathered the 5,000 signatures necessary to put Kay on the ballot. They plan to get several thousand more just to be sure. Kay has been active in libertarian causes for over a decade. At one time, she was Ohio chairman of the Liberty Amendment Committee, and she currently serves as the LP National Executive Committee, which again is the equivalent of the LNC, representative from Region 5. Kay reports that one of the strongest areas of support she has encountered to date is the gun-owning community, which has responded very favorably to her strong stand against anti-gun laws. And then it says where to send contributions. I did not know she was a member of the executive committee at that time. I'm getting a lot of good information to extract out into Elpedia. Like I tell all of you, if you're interested in volunteering for Elpedia, I've got work for you to do. If you're interested in history, there's a lot to get involved in the National Party with that. Next, Bob Steiner. Check out those glasses and that smile. Look at you, Bob. So Bob Steiner will soon publicly announce his candidacy for Congress in New Jersey's 12th District. Bob, a life member of the LP, that's where I recognize his name from, and our New Jersey chairman, is an accomplished public speaker. He is also exceptionally knowledgeable on economic issues and is becoming well known in New Jersey as a champion of the overburdened taxpayer. He has published 2 books and plans a third, entitled How We Won, to be released after his campaign, which will draw on the talents of experienced libertarians from New York and Virginia, as well as New Jersey. The incumbent congressman in Bob's district is a freshman Republican with a Royce rating of 36, which Bob says is extremely vulnerable. Perhaps the most unusual event related to Bob's campaign so far is the unanimous endorsement he has received from Alaskans for Independence as a result of his support for Alaska's right to secede from the United States. Oh, individual gang. You can, first of all, note my email address is pinkflameofliberty@gmail.com. And basically, the field's wide open for what you can do for LPedia. But the types of things that we have people doing is taking some raw scans of old newsletters, not necessarily national newsletters. They can be from states. They can be press releases. Uploading them into LPedia and then reading through them and extracting out information. So like say this was a newsletter I assigned you as a volunteer and you uploaded it and you're reading it and you would go, oh, Bob Steiner is 1974 chairman of the Ohio Party. You would go to the article for the Ohio Libertarian Party and make sure that his name is noted in historical chairman. So you'd read through old newsletters and extract out information that needs to be documented elsewhere, particularly what I call top-level information, like who the board of directors was at any particular time, who candidates were at any particular time. So any really interesting information. But we have so much data and information to go through that I usually tell people who are interested in volunteering, what are you interested in? Whatever you're interested in, I can find something related to your interest for you to work on. And we also need things like cassette tapes being digitized. We need a lot of uploading. We need some things being taken from a PDF into Word. We need people to be doing deep dives into the Wayback Machine and finding old newsletters and grabbing them out of the Internet Archive and getting them on LP News. The field is wide open. Like, I've got 1,000 projects that can be done. And because it's all online, it's on your own time. You could do it at 2 a.m, buck naked if you want to. So it's unlike some LP volunteer positions where you got to show up and do something. This is at your own pace, at your own time, and at your own interest level. So just get in touch with me. I would be glad to have you as a volunteer, and welcome fellow Mises member. All right, next, Carl Bray. And check out those dark sunglasses Carl Bray has on there, or at least tinted glasses. Carl Bray, your first step, individual gang, would be first go to lpedia.org and register for an account. We use the same software as Wikipedia. So if you ever went to Wikipedia, you'll recognize the software. And then email me at pinkflameofliberty@gmail.com, and I'll get you started, because I've got a million projects. And I really appreciate the volunteer help. All right, so back to Carl Bray. Carl Bray is a legend in the LP history. He is a tax martyr. He is from Ohio. He fought taxation his whole LP career. So here is about Carl Bray. Carl Bray, a well-known figure in the tax strike movement, will be Utah's LP candidate for Congress in that state's 2nd District. Carl, a life member of the party, has been an active supporter from our earliest days. He was on the temporary National Executive Committee, and I don't think I knew that, and the 1972 Platform Committee. I don't think I knew that. He is currently vice chair of the Utah Party. And before I finish the sentence, hello there, Miguel. There's a commenter, says Miguel Hertel. He says, hey, I just found your channel. I'm a fellow anarchist from Brazil. Welcome, Miguel. Love seeing other anarchists. And just a point of trivia, I'm now since divorced, but my first husband was from Brazil. My married name before was Dos Santos, which I know is a very, very common last name in Brazil. So, yeah, it used to be Karen Dos Santos, 2 saints. We were hardly 2 saints, though. But I always have a fondness for Brazil because of that. And I'm from South Florida. And boy, is there a huge Brazilian population. And I'm now in Colorado, but I'm originally from South Florida. Okay, let's go now to where this is continued on page 3. But the last sentence on page 1 was, Carl has been harassed by the IRS because of his outspoken, and let's go to this page, advocacy of tax resistance. and plans to make the tax issue a main element in his campaign. Current campaign strategy is for Carl to enter the GOP primary in order to gain exposure and then to run in the general election as a Libertarian. Sneaky, sneaky. The incumbent congressman in Carl's district is Wayne Owens, a Democrat with a Royce rating of 27, and then the address for his donations. And Individual Gang says he's from Nevada. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make the Nevada convention. I really wanted to go, but it conflicts, I think, with Florida. And I'm the parliamentarian for Florida's convention. I'm trying to make every convention I can, but I believe Nevada's, I know it conflicts with something that both myself and my campaign manager are going to, which is a shame, because here's another fun fact about Nevada. Before the Mises, call it takeover, whatever you'd like to call it, in Nevada, I have never, in any of my runs on the national committee, I've never gotten a vote from Nevada. I have a perfect goose egg score from Nevada. So that, I hope that changes this year. But I used to go to Nevada conventions and I would laugh when I was talking to them about my campaign, because I was like, I'm not scared at all about what I have to say to you guys, because I can't do any worse. I've never gotten a vote out of Nevada. So what's you going to do? Giving me a -1? So I really wanted to go to Nevada this time when I have a chance. But it just didn't work out. All right, so the last candidate we have to cover before we're gone for this evening, and I can see if that was Angela McArdle giving me a call, who I suspect it was. Ken Kalchheim, like Carl Bray, is a leader in the tax strike movement, and I've never heard of him before. He is the editor and publisher of Ripoff Resistance, a monthly magazine containing material by tax fighters of both the far right and the far left. Ken has announced for Congress in New York's 17th District, where he will be running against John Murphy, a Democrat with a Royce rating of 6. Wow, that sucks. My goodness. A score equal or surpassed in its atrociousness only by 2 other congressmen. Ken began his career in libertarianism as a conservative Republican, but is now associated with the extreme radical faction, hello, that's us, that's me, of the libertarian movement. He hopes to receive an official endorsement from the Free Libertarian Party of New York for his campaign. Then the address for contributions. It says other libertarian candidates whose plans we have heard of include Paul how do you pronounce that? Whenever there's a PF, the P is silent, right? Ferdner, who is running for state legislature in Oregon, and John James, who plans to run for Congress in Colorado's 1st District. Stories on these and other campaigns will be carried in LP News as information becomes available. So, for LP News, that's all we're going to cover tonight. But let's take a look at comments, because this is what I live for, the interaction that these shows bring, and I love meeting new people. And I want to put this. Let me go first back to my full screen here, and let me put this comment from Miguel up here. So Miguel says there's a big anarchist movement in Brazil. We say anarcho-capitalism because of the ANCOMs. We kind of have to do that here now too. Within libertarian circles here, big L libertarian, and I know even over there, and particularly in Europe, oftentimes libertarian means ANCOM. In America, it doesn't, but I understand that you really have to make that decision elsewhere. And so, yeah, I use the word anarcho-capitalist as well. That is what I am. No worry that I'm a red. It's much easier being an anarchist when you have to choose between a fascist and a communist every year. Yeah, ain't that the truth? You know, ain't that the truth? And I have some past episodes where people have challenged me, how can you be an anarchist involved in politics? If anyone is wondering that now, who's a new listener, who is watching this either after the fact and can't comment in live chat, or is just wondering, I dealt with that multiple times. I think the title of the episode, it's called The State of the LP. And it's a talk I gave to Liberty on the Rocks in Denver, Colorado. The Liberty on the Rocks movement in Denver, I know in a lot of other areas of the country, it's very Republican. In Denver, it's all ANCAPs. In Denver, they're like hardcore anarchists. So I was trying to convince them to get involved in the LP. So I had to make the pitch as to why it makes sense, or at least it makes sense to me. I don't judge what other people do. It certainly makes sense to me. And then there is, we did. Yes. Go to Daniel 3 Biblical Anarchy, because we talked about it on that show. Actually, Daniel, the interview I gave on your show, I think is my favorite interview, actually, because we talked about so many different things that were so unusual from other interviews I've given. So if that's not an endorsement for people to go watch your show, I don't know what would be. All right. And Individual Gang says the whole world is run by politics. Correct. You can try to ignore politics, but politics ain't going to ignore you, and it's going to bend you over the table. You know, it's going to rape you hard. So you better be prepared to defend yourself. That's what I have to say. All right, guys. So, man, I kept it to under 40 minutes. That's a record for me. And since I know on Sunday it's going to be hours of streaming with all the bull crap that I know the LNC is going to be doing, that I wanted to keep this one short if I could. Tomorrow's radio show will not be streamed on my channel because it's a repeat. Because of those of you who don't know, I broke my arm 2 weeks ago. It's healing nicely, but it's been I've been in so much pain this week that I've been sleeping a lot because pain just makes me tired, and I didn't record a new show, so it's going to be a repeat tomorrow. So I'm not restreaming. I'm not rebroadcasting it, but there will be other shows tomorrow. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow. And Miguel says you guys in the U.S. are very lucky to have the First Amendment. In Brazil, we don't have anything similar. And we even have something called, and I wish I can pronounce that. I will try. Lei de I can't pronounce it. I am so sorry. I'm so terrible. Lei de Segurança Nacional. Is that close? Which considers us terrorists. They're starting to consider us terrorists here in this country, unfortunately. I know we're fortunate for, some of the protections we do have, but they're getting eroded so fast. But I am grateful for what does remain. All right, everyone. I hope you have an awesome night, and I'll probably see you multiple times tomorrow. Love you, and you'll probably like my exiting. I always say this, Miguel. I always say that I hope you have an awesome night. Mi guapes de libertad.
What you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.